Hello, I'm here just outside Shrewsbury with somebody who you may recognise from her many appearances on GB News. Somebody who was briefly the leader of UKIP.
No, I was never there. 3 days.
Briefly.
Apparently, very briefly.
Very briefly. And you may recognise Suzanne Evans from her appearances on GB News. What you may not realise is that Suzanne is my cousin, strictly speaking, second cousin. Her father is my maternal grandfather's brother.
It's very complicated.
It's second cousin, so you're my mum's cousin.
That, if you say so.
I say so.
That's fine.
And so we'll be speaking to Suzanne about her career at the sharp end of media and politics, her relationship with Nigel Farage,
I didn't. It's a lie. It's a vicious rumour.
Yeah, it was a relationship of sorts, and we'll talk about the current parlous state of British politics, but more importantly for me, I think that it's worth noting that Suzanne and I are not exactly politically aligned. I'm not a Michael Foot style socialist, but my politics are towards the centre left. But despite that, Suzanne and I have always got on famously, and at any family party we would often go out for cocktails. We were in
Shrewsbury. You nearly had me saying Shrewsbury then, you rotter.
In Shrewsbury.
We had a lovely cocktail. We had a nice night of cocktail drinking, didn't we, in
a bar
Shrewsbury?
called the Libertine.
Yeah, I remember I had a cocktail in a pineapple. It was literally out of a pineapple.
And I drank one out of a shoe.
You did?
Yeah.
Gosh, I'd forgotten that. Yes.
And it was delicious. And our relationship as a family unit has been long-standing, and that's my point is that we don't see eye to eye on politics necessarily, but there's a deep lying friendship and regard for each other, certainly as far as I'm concerned. Anyway.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Okay.
I have to say that.
Okay. So Suzanne has had a varied and checkered career.
That makes it sound really sleazy.
It does, yeah, it does. I stand by it. But no, in media and politics. And Suzanne, you grew up in and around
Shrewsbury.
Yeah. And one of your first media jobs was weather and travel for Radio
Yeah,
WM?
so I started off, it was really weird actually, because I remember I did an English lesson, and I remember my English teacher saying to me, Suzanne, that's really good, you should be a journalist. I think it was a summary of a big story and you had to summarise it down, and she said you should be a good journalist. And it never occurred to me in a million years to be a journalist. And then I had a friend who'd applied to do some work experience at BBC Radio Shropshire. So I thought, oh, maybe I should do that as well. So I did. And then they offered me a job when I left university. And it was literally an unpaid
Theology,
job.
did you study?
Religious studies. I did at Lancaster. But they offered me this job at Radio Shropshire. I did it for 3 months, unpaid. And then I got a job at Radio WM in Birmingham doing the travel news. And I remember it was a really tough gig. I'd get up at 5 a.m. in the morning. I'd do a 6 till 9 shift. And then I'd have a breakfast. I'd have a slap-up English breakfast. And I'd be on shift again at 11. I'd work till 7. I'd go home. I'd get home about 8. And I'd go to bed and I'd be up at 5. And it was quite a slog. And I did that for a couple of years. And then I moved to London I actually got a job working as a researcher for Radio 1.
So which year? When
that would have been 1980. I left university in 87, so 88. So at the tail end of 1989, I went to London.
Matthew Bannister era Radio.
Yeah, that sort of thing. Yeah. Yes. And Sybil Ruscoe, who I'd worked with at BBC Radio Shropshire, she went to Newsbeat on Radio 1. So, and I was working on a programme for Simon Mayo. And then from there, I just started freelancing for Radio 4 and Radio 5, which was newly launched then.
Yeah.
And I did that for a few years. And then I became a single mum, and I couldn't sustain. It was fab. I loved it. The great thing about working for Radio 4 and Radio 5 as a freelance journalist, you go into the office in the morning, you'd never know where you'd be at lunchtime or when you'd get home, which was great when you're young, free and single. Yeah. But when you've got responsibilities, I couldn't sustain that kind of lifestyle. Yeah. So I moved into public relations, set up a PR consultancy.
Yeah, so that you were instructing people, schooling them, tutoring them on how to behave in front of the camera.
Effectively, I still do that. Yeah,
that's what you currently do alongside your work as a presenter on GB News.
Well, I'm not a presenter, but I'm a contributor. So they just call me up and say, "Do you want to talk about this?" And I say, "Yeah," or "No," sometimes, and it's fun.
Yeah. And
you've never watched GB News, have you, Craig? It's not your type of thing, is it?
It's not my type of thing.
You see, and that's where you're going wrong.
yeah. I'm absolutely prepared to listen to everybody's side of the.
You are. That's very true.
So I think it's important that people may not be of the same opinion, but we've become divisive as a society, not just in this country, but elsewhere.
No, I agree. It is perfectly possible to disagree with somebody but maintain a good relationship and a good friendship, and nobody can ever agree 100% of the time.
No. And why would you want to? It'd be
very boring. It'd be very boring. Yeah. And I hate Punch and Judy politics.
Yeah.
You oppose something purely because it's being spoken about by somebody else who you don't supposed to agree with, and I think that's responsible for a lot of the problems we have, actually.
Yeah, it is. I would agree. Yeah. So the GB News gig, you on there averaging a couple of times a week?
Oh, probably a couple of times a week. Yeah.
But prior to that, and during the PR agency London years, you became involved in London politics for Merton Borough Council.
Yeah, I became a councillor for the London Borough of Merton in 2010. Much to my surprise, because although I'd been interested in politics, I'd never in a million years thought I would get personally involved in politics. And it was actually through friends who were Conservative councillors. And I have to be honest, I wasn't particularly enamoured with the Conservative Party at the time, didn't particularly like David Cameron. But they kept saying, "Oh, Suzanne, you ought to stand for council, you'd be very good, you're very active in your local community, you've done this, that and the other." And I'm saying, "No, I'm not a Conservative, don't really want to get involved in politics." But eventually they persuaded me and I stood for election and won a seat in 2010. But I have to say, quite quickly got quite disillusioned, actually.
With political life generally?
Yes, with the sort of party political system. I think the adversarial nature of politics, which we were talking about, which I didn't particularly like. I didn't mind it. I mean, I'm not the kind of person that shies away from somebody wants to heckle me in a speech. I'll give as good as I get. I'm not particularly shy about coming forward. But it was having to toe party lines I found quite hard. Having to potentially talk about issues and policies that you might not yourself agree with, but that was the party line, so you had to toe it. Yeah. And I found that quite hard. And also, I just found the way in which some of my colleagues were behaving was unethical, between you and me. And the way in which some of the Labour politicians on the other side behaving, I thought was unethical. And anyway, by 2013, I'd left and joined UKIP because I've always been very suspicious about the European Union. And they were the only party that was campaigning to leave at that point. And just I felt a change from the two-party state, as it were. It was Labour Conservative, and I just felt we needed something new and fresh.
And how do you think that's gone?
Yeah, it was very interesting. As I say, I'm not the kind of person that seeks the limelight or wants publicity, and I suddenly found myself thrust into it. So that was interesting.
Oh, I mean, the European Union.
Oh, sorry, yes. I thought you were talking about politics in general.
No, I mean...
Well, it's been pretty dreadful, hasn't it?
It has.
As you know, I still absolutely think Brexit was the right thing to do, without a shadow of a doubt. But I don't feel that the leaders that we've had since then have really grasped the opportunities that it offered. You know, I was on the board of Vote Leave, the campaign to take us out of the EU, obviously the winning campaign. And we spoke at length about the opportunities that Brexit gave. And yet none of our political leaders since that vote in 2016 have had the gumption or the bottle or the sheer vision to do what's necessary to make it work. And I find that immensely frustrating, immensely frustrating. Because seriously, they don't want it to work. They want to go back in. Starmer wants to go back in. Theresa May wanted to go back in. She never wanted to leave. And I just find it really disheartening that there are so many opportunities that Brexit gives us, and yet we're still shackled to the EU because our leaders want us to be.
I'm going to have to ask, such as?
Well, I think all manner of reasons, really. There was talk about this great reform bill, that we would just do away with EU laws and EU legislation and basically start with a clean sheet, take back control. That was the big phrase of the Vote Leave campaign. Take back control, take back democracy, take back control of our money, take back control of our borders. And in fact, that's not happened. The leaders just carried on, same old, same old. Boris Johnson arguably was the Prime Minister that could have made that change, but then COVID hit. So you had 3-4 years focusing on this, on COVID issues, and the rest of politics went out of the window. So there was no chance to make any policy make any difference. Yeah. And he screwed it up completely. He was a disastrous PM, in my view.
Initially, you were a fan. I think you believed.
I thought he made a very good London mayor.
I thought that too.
I was never convinced he'd be a good PM.
Yeah.
But at the time when he obviously ducked out and Theresa May came in. But the time he came in, he was our only hope, really. But as I say, then COVID hit. It was a complete disaster. I think COVID was handled completely badly. That's another story. I don't think you want to go into that now. But yeah, and the whole thing fell apart. And then clearly, here we now have Keir Starmer. You love Keir Starmer?
I wouldn't say I love him.
That's good. There's hope for you then, yeah.
Yeah, the local elections. It's important to look past the political system, and when I see my local councillors, Izzy specifically, she's out on the street, she's making differences to people's lives. She's organising litter rubbish, litter collecting, and much more important things than that. But I think that gets lost in the foray of international politics, and I think it's important to vote local.
I agree, and actually, on the whole, I think it's true, and obviously some exceptions, but I think Lib Dem councillors actually do work hard for their local community, and I like to think I did as a local councillor. And for me, certainly the greatest pleasure was being able to do that. Yeah. And that's what I loved about being a local councillor, was really being able to make a difference in people's lives. Yeah. But it's a shame because, of course, most people, when they're voting in any election, vote on national issues rather than local issues. So you can be the best local councillor in the world, but the party you represent nationally is screwing things up, and that's it. You're out of office, and I think that's a great shame.
It is, yeah. So you're 3 years at
4. It was. I was a year at UKIP and 3 years as a Tory.
Oh, I see. Yes. So you were 4 years as a councillor, as a councillor, but about 3 as a Tory.
Yes.
And when I use the phrase when you went purple, as in I don't mean physically, but
well, it always was a favourite colour.
Yeah. I distinctly remember. I've followed your career as you know, and I remember reading about it was Grant Shapps, Conservative Party chairman. I think that he'd described local sort of activists and politicians at a local level as, I think the phrase was, swivel-eyed loons, and then David Cameron chimed in with a particular phrase.
Yeah, fruitcakes, loons, and closet racists, I think it was.
Yeah. And that's.
I mean, I'm sorry, and the trouble is that's still happening.
Yeah.
You want to leave the EU, you're a far-right loon. No.
Yeah.
Half the population wanted it.
Yeah.
Don't just slag off half the population.
No.
You know, the majority of people in this country are concerned about uncontrolled mass immigration. You can't write us all off as racist. Every other country in the world, bar ours, as far as I can tell, has border control. We seem to be on the outlier in that. So you can't just write us all off. It incenses me, actually.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, and you're passionate about that. But the and your switch to the to UKIP happened in
2013.
2013, and you.
Gosh, seems an age away, a lifetime away.
You were communities. What was the position?
Well, originally, so what happened was, I think, basically when we left the London Borough of Merton, 6 of us defected from the Conservative Party.
Went purple.
So that, well, 3 of us went purple, 3 of us just went independent, 3 went independent. But that made national newspaper headlines because it was a big thing.
And reading that.
And you thought, oh no, my cousin's on the front page of the papers. Oh dear, what's she done?
It was a big moment.
And, so it was a big national story, and as a result, I was interviewed by various media outlets. And it was a wonderful friend of mine who sadly died quite recently, called Patrick O'Flynn, who went to Nigel Farage and said, look, this woman's quite good at doing media interviews. I think you should make something of it.
Trade, isn't it?
Well, it was, having been a journalist, broadcast journalist, I suppose. But being on the other side of the microphone is very different. Anyway, Patrick said, I think you should talk to Suzanne and see if there's a role for her in the party. And Farage said, no, absolutely not. We don't have people who aren't MEPs as spokespeople. But anyway, he changed his mind, and they came up with this gig for me, which they called me community spokesperson, which was a completely manufactured title, but they reckoned that meant I could talk about just about anything. And of course, you've got most of the major people in UKIP were all over in Brussels most of the time, so they couldn't do media interviews. But I was in London on the scene. So that's what I did. I talked about just about anything. And that really catapulted me into the front line of politics and limelight in a way that I would never have anticipated. So it was pure chance, really.